one of the first things I wanted to ask you about, obviously, was the oil embargo. And there's a story that just went up on the LA Times just before we went live. I'll read you the headline. Europe's Russian oil ban could mean a new world order for energy. And I find that interesting because I'm hopeful that new world order will be a better new world order, but I want to get your take on it.
Thank you very much for that question. You know that I'm an oil and gas guy, so I'm obviously watching very, very closely on what's going on. And firstly, for everyone to understand that oil is a way larger contributor to the Russian budget than natural gas. You know, many people do believe that natural gas is something because all the pipelines and everything. No, oil is way more meaningful than the natural gas. It's like 3 times, I believe, larger than the natural gas for Russian economy. The exact numbers, if I'm not mistaken, it's something like oil contributes approximately 180 billion US a year, and natural gas is like 55, something like that. Okay. So majority of Russian oil goes to Europe, and majority that means 96, I believe, 95, 96 million tons. By the ban that is being imposed right now with the embargo, if we take out all the oil supplies to Hungary and Slovakia, which were taken out of the embargo, those 2 countries, they contribute for 15 million approximately out of this 96. So we have no, wait a second, I'm mistaken here because I remember the final number. So altogether it's 110, and then 15 million minus which goes to Hungary and Slovakia. So we have 95 which stays after those 2 exclusions. So even if in future that would continue, they would stay indefinitely excluded from the sanctions. Still, Russia is losing a promising 95.5, 95.6, so between 95 and 96 million tons a year of export. Obviously, Russian propaganda is bragging that, oh, you know, we will sell this now to China, we will sell this now to India. Logistically, absolute maximum that can be reoriented from Europe to Asian markets in any foreseeable future. I mean, like we are talking about year, 2 years, 3 years. It's approximately 10 million tons. So 85, it's a serious blow to the Russian budget. And now we should understand how that would affect the oil prices at the end of the day. But even if the oil prices will be going higher, and right now it looks like they will be going lower because US managed to point on this situation for OPEC plus countries, and they're talking about how to exclude Russia from the arrangement, and that means more oil for the global market. So there is right now already a tendency that the oil will be decreased in price, and the Asians, both Chinese and Indians, they would demand discounts from Russia. Chinese already buying Russian oil virtually in the barter deals because Rosneft is heavily indebted for China, and they're taking oil in return for the payments that they have made in the previous years. Now, Indians, okay, but discounts, and those discounts right now are $35 a barrel. So that means that 1/3 of the price is already out. So that's more or less the situation for Russia. So sorry for such a lengthy answer, but I just wanted to prove the position because many people are talking about what does it mean for the budget, for the economy. No, it's a serious loss. It's a very, very serious loss for Russia.
So while you were logging in, one of our viewers asked or made a point about Hungary in particular. There's has been some resistance to this embargo, and I think there was a loophole made for them. Is that simply because they need the oil and don't have another way to get it economically, or is there a political reason for them to be resisting in the way that they are as well?
It's actually both. Um, uh, but the most obvious reason for this is that MOL, MOL, the national Hungarian oil company, is the major donor for Prime Minister Orban.
Mhm.
So it's not even about Mr. Putin and whatever, it's about MOL. And I know this company very well from the inside because UCOS, the oil company that I was working in, we were buying MOL, and I was supervising Hungary, in my capacity as the vice president of that company in general. And it was supposed to become part of UCOS. When UCOS was confiscated by Vladimir Putin, he actually threw the ownership of MOL to Surgutneftegaz, to another oil company where Putin is believed to have his personal interest, his personal stake. Then the Hungarian government, I believe that was in 2011 or 2012, something like that, they made a deal to buy back the ownership in MOL from Surgutneftegaz, and they did that, but nevertheless, the influence and technological dependence absolutely remained. So MOL is very much interested in retaining the supplies from Russia, and is pressuring Orban. But obviously, Orban also wants to have his other benefits from Russia as well, from Vladimir Putin and stuff. But in oil case in particular, I think that the greater pressure is coming from MOL rather than from Kremlin.
Hmm. Well, and since we're talking about such a significant sanction, let's talk about the sanctions overall. And I'm curious because I've read conflicting reports on what the impact of the sanctions so far are on your average Russian. On one hand, I've read, well, it hasn't really impacted them that much, other than the fact that, the luxury stores are closed at the malls. And I've heard other reports of no.
I
They're
thought you I
actually
thought you were saying average Russians, and you're talking about luxury luxury malls. Yes.
Oh, you mean the average Russian does not shop at Prada?
I doubt. That's for Vladimir Putin. Because even middle class people who can theoretically afford Prada, they know that the prices in Russian Prada are at least twice as expensive as in Europe. So they would rather buy it elsewhere.
Yes, yes. So how are these sanctions impacting your average Russian? And how does that then impact their view of Putin and their view of the war?
They do impact, in fact. The question is how people connect the dots.
Yes,
That's the biggest
exactly.
problem. Because in reality, we see the rising prices. That's happening. We see the unemployment that went up. Obviously, we see a deficit of numerous different goods that are being supplied into Russia. From female tampons, for example, it appears that they are not produced inside Russia; they all are imported. Say the regular paper which you write on, it appears that the whitening substance, which makes the paper white, is also totally imported and from Finland, and Finland stopped the supplies. So now all the paper that is produced in Russia, it has this yellow tint, yellow, even rose tint, so there's no white paper really,
Huh,
it's like it
huh.
disappeared. The more serious things are happening, which obviously ordinary Russians do not see. There was a report of today, no, yesterday, sorry. It appears that in Russia, we do not produce, I'm trying to remember how that's called in English. That's a detail for the wheels. The to make wheel rotating, you need this small
Oh,
like
ball
spoke like.
bearings? Ball
Yeah.
bearing?
Ball
Okay.
bearings, ball bearings. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they are not being produced in Russia anymore. They
Hmm.
all are being imported. And
Hmm.
because of that, two factories, one which is producing machinery equipment and another which is producing railroad cars, have stopped because they
Hmm.
cannot produce this bloody stuff. And there is no way where to get it except from the West. The products of personal hygiene, they're being replaced with Chinese production, which is
Hmm.
obviously maybe a lower quality, but at least you can do the replacement.
Yes.
But with this industrial stuff, you cannot. And again, that means that even when those companies, which were sometimes controlled by the Western shareholders, they have been confiscated, nationalized, and now have been controlled by Russians, but they still cannot produce nothing, and that means
Yes.
unemployment anyway. And the company that produces these railroad cars that I was talking about, it employs some 7,000 people. The machinery company, there was like 5,000 people. So the impact is growing. Question is that ordinary Russians so far they do not understand why all this is happening, and maybe sometimes it's even for better, because then a thoughtful opposition which recognizes the problem can actually pinpoint the actual person to blame, which sits in the Kremlin. And that's
Hmm.
what we're very much trying to do right now.
It occurs to me, and this may require speculation on your part, but because this invasion has been part of the whole pandemic period, excuse me, part of a
Mhm.
pandemic period and its impact on economies, I'm speculating that perhaps Russians think that, oh, this is just more impact of the pandemic instead of connecting it more directly to the invasion of Ukraine.
No, that's
Okay.
I think it is wrong, because Russians didn't see much of the impact of the pandemic
Okay.
at all.
Okay.
It was not like in the West, because Russian economy is to a very large degree controlled by the state, and that means both buckets. One thing is just public employees, state workers, and that's like teachers, doctors, and also pensioners, by the way. So those which are subsidized and financed by the state budget, obviously they didn't feel anything, because the state just was continuing to pay them. Then the state companies, even those who kept their employees on quarantine, they were mandated to pay the full salary.
Yes.
And the remaining, small portion of like real business people, also the state was saying, if you guys wouldn't pay full salary, no matter what, we will come after you, with all the tax people and other stuff, and like we will pay close attention about what's going on in your companies. And they preferred, like, okay, we got the message,
Yes.
so we better keep things where they are. So it was very painful for the owners of those companies, but for the general crowd it was not. And that Putin very much has written in his personal, achievement, that Russia managed to get through the pandemic very nicely. No, when I was saying about connecting the dots, obviously Putin is saying, the country was under attack anyway. So it was
By
those
the West.
bloody Americans. They already started attacking us, and we just retaliated. And we
Hmm.
made it like a preemptive strike, because otherwise these sanctions, they would have continued in the military invasion as well. So we just chose between two evils the lesser one.
Hmm.
That's his message, and that's the question, whether ordinary Russians would believe this or not. And here the good news is that those people who are mostly affected, the poorest circles of the society, they were dissatisfied with the authorities already pretty much for a very long time, because they still think that those guys, they're riches, they enjoy the luxury lifestyle, and they so much in the West, they keep their families in the West, etc., etc., etc. So, and we have to suffer because of those crooks. And
Yes.
they never thought that Vladimir Putin is a great leader. It's not a very large circle of the society, but nevertheless, I would say it's like 20% of the society, and right now it's obviously growing because of all those economic hardships.
So I want to ask you a question about something that happened in your past. I was
Mhm.
watching an interview you did about the annexation of Crimea. And
Mhm.
I think everybody here knows you were the lone vote against it. You were the lone voice of opposition in the parliament. And in this interview, you said, I'm going to quote you closely, my
Mhm.
finger shook as I pushed the button. In other words, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but my interpretation was you knew it was the right thing to do, and it was a frightening thing to do. And the reason I'd like you to recount that moment for us, but also tell us for your average Russian and maybe even a business owner or someone who's a little higher up in society, how frightening is it for them to say something in opposition to Mr. Putin, even if they know it's right?
Well, it is scary for sure. That depends on who you are and what do you say, right? So the modern day Russia is not Soviet Union of Joseph Stalin.
Yes.
It's a different society, and it's not even Leonid Brezhnev's times. Because with Brezhnev, you can basically speak openly in the kitchen, but you better not do it in public. So
Yes.
such double way thinking was kind of allowed. During Stalin, you better don't speak even at your own kitchen, because
Yes.
you could have been reported by your neighbors, and whoever may listen to you could have reported you. With Putin, basically can say certain things even in public. It's just that if you do so, you would become isolated and you will have a lot of problems in your day-to-day life. You would be, if you were dependent on the state somehow, you would be fired. You would be denied any of public contracts. And as I said, the overwhelming majority of the economy is one way or another connected to the state procurement. You would be denied any career advances. So you would be very much isolated. You can survive, if you have your ways to live, if you have your private business which is totally disconnected from the state. Okay, you may survive. But otherwise, it's a problem. And obviously, the problem is when you are already being a part of the power ranks, and that's where you do something disloyal to Vladimir Putin personally. That's what would be severely punished because Putin wants to show the monolith of power ranks. He allows certain opposition within, but that's the opposition on, say, directions of social economic policies, like what should be the level of taxes, how we should reform healthcare. Yes, about this you can debate and you can oppose the government on those issues. He
On
is not that he
policy,
does.
on
Yeah, on
policy.
policy, on
Yeah.
policy matters. But when you confront him personally and his decisions on foreign policy, it should not be debated because that's about like national integrity, the overarching vision, and that's where you have to be loyal. Otherwise, you will be punished seriously.
It's as I'm listening to you, I'm running mafia movies, through
Yeah,
my head.
yeah.
And even when you were talking about, during the pandemic, you might get a visit, and if you don't pay your employees, you didn't say it, but we're going to break your legs, we're going to kill your dog, we're going to kidnap your children. I mean, for us in the U.S., I think maybe the closest thing we can relate to, mostly because we've seen it on TV and in movies, is the mafia. But maybe the mafia learned it from, you know,
No, that's exactly the right comparison. Vladimir Putin is the chief of organized crime unit.
Yes.
And he was doing it from the time when he was in St. Petersburg as the first deputy mayor of the city. He was supervising all the economic affairs within the city, so he was directly supervising mafia.
Yeah.
St. Petersburg is one of the most criminal places in Russia.
Mm.
Traditionally, for certain reason, I don't know why, but it's it's like Chicago,
Mm.
in the
Mm.
in the US, would be
Yes.
more or less the accurate comparison. And so there were several Al Capones in the city, and
Mm.
Vladimir Putin was the guy who was supervising Al Capones.
Oh,
So
he was the
they were
boss of the
reporting to
El
him.
Capone.
He was the boss of Al Capones. So yeah, obviously that's the psychology he picked up, and
Huh.
that's what he is using. No, he's not breaking the legs of most people, but he is sending his people to them, and they always can find whatever violations. They have made so many regulations in the country that you cannot obey all the time
Yes.
anyway. So it can be fire department, can be tax department, so it can be some police authority, it can be like whatever, and they will find something that would make your life miserable and that would ruin your business. And in extreme cases, obviously, yes, then can be novichok, but that's in extreme cases. You need to earn it. That's that's
I'm going to
high
try to
high regard,
avoid them.
high regard of your achievements. Yes.
Yes. So I want to ask you one more question before I let you go. And that is, you've told us about your 24/7 YouTube channel, February morning, in Russian, news for Russians about the war. I'm just curious if you know off the top of your head, right now, what are some of the most common or most visited stories? What do you find is getting the greatest amount of attention from those Russians who are visiting the channel?
You would laugh. You would laugh. The most watched piece on our TV channel is the interview with astrologist, with
Really?
whom it was a discussion when this whole mess will end. That is the most watched one.
Huh.
As Russians, again, it's very interesting because that very much reflects the state of the society. The Russians are in total disarray right now. They are totally disoriented. They don't know whom to listen to. They don't know whom to pray to, because even our great patriarch right now is supporting the war. So even the church is ruined. So
Yes.
they don't know where to run to, and they're using some superstitions. They are turning to prophets, tarot, whatever, but to understand where the whole thing is going, what to expect, and where to hide.
One of the things that I think of as you tell me that is fascinating. It was not what I was expecting. Uh, but it also says to me that perhaps people feel hopeless, or better said, powerless. And so they're looking for some other source of power and logic, or logic's not the right word, but structure in their life, because the structure is breaking down. And I have a couple of words to close with you, Ilya, based on what you just said about this astrology story and how you just explained it. And those last few words are New York Times or Washington Post op-ed, because that would make an amazing insight into the Russian psyche from your channel. And I think Americans would find that really interesting and also really insightful. So I'm going to leave you with that. I offer you my help as a journalist to perhaps put that together. I'm going to let you go. We had some questions here today, including Agnieszka's that I can see here. We'll talk about these tomorrow. Emily,
Well,
do you
let
want to
me
talk about that?
let me answer
Yeah,
to Agnes,
please.
because I see her question here, and it's the I have this answer. Yes. So this that you are talking about is they all are related to gas exports. They all are related to Gazprom. And Gazprom is like, it's a state within the state, and it's like a mafia within the mafia. It's different in the oil and gas in the oil community. You know, it's very specific to the gas one. And everybody who died, I think that they were assassinated. Looks because they all died in similar circumstances, and they all died all together with their families. So it was obviously somebody was trying to close the loose ends and making sure that no information would leak. I think that what was actually happening is those people who were allowed, Gazprom was hiding its financial flows using individuals who were pretending that they were doing their individual businesses. It was only the state business, but because it's a state corporation, you know, so they needed to use those proxies to hide the flows. Because of the sanctions and everything, they started to shut down those businesses, those flows started to stop. And those guys, they kind of, okay, so what do we do now? And their assets could be arrested, and they could not return to Russia because they would have no place to go and nothing to do in Russia. So obviously, I think they were trying to defect to find the counterparts in the West, and I think that was the reason why they were punished.
All right, we're going to wrap it up there. I want to remind everybody, well, a couple of people have, you know, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, near the upper right-hand corner of your screen, there's a button with a dollar sign or it says pay host. Ilya and I are the hosts. We're not being paid to be here. We're volunteers. Jody just paid. Lucy just paid. Ina just paid. If you hit that button, it looks like this. You can make it all this money, every dollar we collect goes to Ilya's, an order indirectly today. There are people, essentially part of the propaganda for the war. In other cases, these people find themselves in jail or with big legal bills, and the Bravery Foundation helps them by paying those legal bills. So this is a very, very important organization, the Bravery Foundation, and Lucas just put a link there. If you click those blue words, Bravery Foundation, that's a link you can share with your friends and family as well. Even if they can't make it to the show, they can still support the Bravery Foundation. And thank you, everybody,
and
Larry
Greg,
and Roy and everyone else
let me
for doing
say
that.
is, I had a little bit of time now, so let me spend another 3 minutes of yours telling you one story about one of the subjects of our assistance of the Bravery Foundation. And by the way, I highly encourage everyone to read. It was in today's Washington Post. I don't know, maybe it was yesterday's. Yeah, it should be yesterday's Washington Post because of the time difference. I read it this morning. So yesterday's Washington Post, the op-ed by Mike McFall, who is writing about the problems that Russian opposition people are facing in the West right now. He writes about my friend Dmitry Gudkov and some others. It's a valuable one. I will not spend my time on it, but I encourage you to do it. But what I wanted to tell you, our first person that we assisted, her name is Marina Ovsyannikova. And this is the lady who protested on Russian TV. Maybe somebody, some of our viewers saw those pictures. You know, it was the lady with a banner, you know, which was standing on the national TV in the background and saying, stop the war and everything. Marina, you know, she's no angel. For many years, she was part of this official propaganda machine. She was working as editor, not the top one, but nevertheless the editor of national news on the first TV channel, which is totally controlled by Russian officials. So he did a lot of harm in this capacity, but she was a cog in the machine. But by doing what she did, she inspired a lot of other Russian state-controlled journalists to resign. There was like several dozen of them who resigned after her move. So I think she has done a good thing. She was later offered a position in Deutsche Welle. That's where she is working right now. Day before yesterday, she was supposed to come to Ukraine, and Ukraine didn't allow her to come. And it was not officials did not allow her to come. Officials were okay with this. It was the society who didn't allow her to come, because Ukrainians were angry. How come? This is the person who was working for Russian propaganda, and you are allowing her to come into our liberated country in the situation of war. And I can totally understand them. Emotionally, I can understand them. Emotionally, I can understand a lot of Russians who say, she should never be forgiven for what she was doing in the propaganda machine. And again, I totally understand this position. But I think that the value of what such people are doing when they defect is way larger than whatever misdeeds they have done in the past. And it's the same like during the Cold War, when a high-ranking military guy or intelligence officer defected, he was offered a new life in the West. And they were bringing different pieces of information with them, which helped to reinforce the global security, and it was deemed appropriate, to spend taxpayers' money, but to get them out. Right now, there is no taxpayers' money. No
Yes.
states are helping these people. So this is something that we need to do ourselves.
And I think you had said in an earlier show, talking about the people you're helping with the Bravery Foundation, sometimes, and I didn't catch her name, but sometimes these are people who, by virtue of the job they have been doing damages, or as you said, have been no angels. But what's important is, who are they today and who are they going to be in the future? Is you have to take that into account and give people a chance to make amends for what they've done in the past and to do good work in the future.
Absolutely. If they show remorse, if they have done something constructive, something which outweighs their misdeeds in the past, I think those people should be invited, and we should encourage them to do what they are doing, and the number of those people should grow. And that's why they have to be protected, despite that they are no angels.
Yes. I'm going to put the link again to the Bravery Foundation in the chat box. Share that with your friends and family. If you can make any kind of donation today, it's the $sign button where it says pay host. Every dollar we collect goes to the Bravery Foundation. And Ilya, thank you so much. I'm so glad you were able to join us. We'll see you next week. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a great weekend. Bye now.
See you guys next Thursday. Take care.